Navi, Navi, where art thou, O Navi the fairy? Listen to my podcast. Hey, listen, and welcome to the ZeldaFilmcast. I'm your host, David Reese, in the show where we adventure across the realms of Hyrule and the Silver Screen. Today is our first ever play-along episode, and we are going to be playing Ocarina of Time this year. And I admit I have a little bit start of the cadence, but once I get going, I want to catch up, and we're going to alternate movies and Ocarina of Time gameplay. So we'll talk about that today. Today's random Zelda wiki is the Blast Ring. Essentially, it's just an accessory in the Oracle games to increase bomb damage. That's not a common item or modifier in Zelda games. Typically, if we get bomb upgrades, it's being able to carry more. It's not, or different types of bombs, like the underwater bombs in Twilight Princess or in Breath of the Wild. I guess you really don't upgrade the bombs. They're either just round or square, but that's from the get-go. So it's pretty cool that the Oracle games, you can increase the damage that bombs do versus other modifiers. Other things could be upgraded. Tunics. I know you could get tunics to have damage, like in A Link to the Past. And much like A Link to the Past, that sets the stage for the franchise. We're going to go back to the 90s, and we're going to talk about the game that comes right after it. Ocarina of Time. So here we go. This is our Let's Play, play-along, video game book club style, spoiler-free run through The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. If you're listening to this feed, this podcast, you've probably played it before. You probably know it inside and out. I also want to make this beginner-friendly. I want this to be welcoming. If this is someone's first experience with Ocarina of Time, oh boy, are they in for a treat. This game is special. Both nostalgic for me and the hearts of a lot of gamers. And admittedly, it hasn't aged the best. It's a 30-year-old game at this point, but it sets up a Zelda formula. It's one of the first narrative games. I shouldn't say the first narrative game, but one of the first games that almost feels like a movie, and one of the first attempts at a RPG in the 3D space. So much so, it was known at one time as Zelda 64 before it got an official title. It was co-developed around the same time as Mario 64. And there was a lot of ideas and iterations that didn't make it into the final build. Personally, for me, I played this game when I probably played it for the first time when I was like 7 or 8, and I didn't have the ability to get all the subtle nuance or the ability to play too far into it. I guess I wasn't that mature of a gamer at that point, which I guess when you're a kid and you're just figuring it out on your own, there's roadblocks and difficulties. But as I got older and I played it, I was like, holy cow, this is a great game. I have not done, full disclaimer, I've only played the 64 version of this game. I have not played the 3D remake they did for the 3DS. There's something about the 64 version that is nostalgic for me, and that'll be the version I'll be playing this year for this run through of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Some other things about the run through: I'm not speed running, I'm not using glitches or special tricks. I'm keeping it beginner friendly, as I've already alluded to. And personally, I'll be doing a 100% walkthrough. So every collectible, every item, which in this game isn't too much. It's just a matter of making sure you go back to areas after you get a certain point. But this will be collecting everything. doing everything the game has to offer. And it'll be the 64 version. Since this is such a monumental game and so beloved and has so much nostalgia by people have always wanted like another remake of it, I guess. They weren't content with just the 3DS remake they did. You see on video or on YouTube, you see all the time videos of people recreating parts of the game in the Unreal Engine to make it look super realistic. But the problem they do with that is they try to make it 1-to-1. And the way I feel is if they ever were to remake it, they would really want to dissect it and build it from the ground up. They wouldn't do a 1-for-1 version. They would probably do something similar to a Final Fantasy VII style remake where they take it and reimagine it and maybe draw it out, maybe. I don't know. But doing a bit-for-bit remake really isn't part of Nintendo's philosophy. They've done it, but that's not what keeps the lifeblood of them going. They don't like doing just visual remakes. If they do a remake, they'll want to do a complete overhaul. They'll probably just do bit-for-bit remakes when there's financial times. But if they're out on top, they want to stay on top by inventing and innovating as well. So let's get into the game. We start off with a nightmare from the Mad Lad, our protagonist of the franchise, Link. You could call him whatever you want in your run. You name your profile, and whatever you name your character here, that's the name that appears when you're having dialogue with people. So you could be David, you could be Link, you could be Stink, Lunk, all the alternatives. And the name you choose will appear in the dialogue presented throughout the game. But your character will just stick with Link, because that's how everyone knows him colloquially. Link is having a nightmare. And essentially what we see is storm clouds, a castle, and a scary figure on a horse. You know he's scary because he's all in black, and the horse has like creepy black armor, and the music is very scary, and it's raining. And he gives this aura about him. And then we get our little monologue with the Deku tree. And the Deku tree basically tells Navi, the fairy, to bring Link to him and to be his guide, his fairy. And then we get like a cinematic opening from the first person view of Navi the fairy flying through the Kokiri Forest, our little opening area, passing people by, speeding up, slowing down. There's a bit she runs into a fence and has to like shake it off and refly through a hole in it. And she wakes up Link, telling him he's a lazy boy, wakey, and telling him that his presence is requested at the Great Deku Tree. Pretty neat. Goes out, his friend Saria's there, says hi. And this is kind of your area to learn the mechanics, how to move your character in 3D space, look around, which since this game has come out, has been tweaked on multiple times and plays very different than how you would pick up Tears of the Kingdom today. I guess the biggest thing is you don't have a camera stick. The Nintendo 64 that this came out on only had the original, just singular the joystick in the center, that your left hand. If you look at the shape of the controller, it's ridiculous. It gets pointed out every once in a while. But the Nintendo 64 controller had like 3 parts you could grab. Left part of the controller had a D-pad. The middle part of the controller had a trigger button on the back and a joystick. And then the right part of the controller had your A, B, and 4 C buttons that were yellow that were supposed to be like camera. And the way you were supposed to play Ocarina of Time was holding the middle joystick and the right portion, just leaving the D-pad to do absolutely nothing. Kokiri Forest is pretty cool. You run around. The little residents have different houses. Apparently, there's a dude that's stuck clearing rocks and grass in front of Saria's and Mido's house. You get yelled at if you pass the shop by someone that says, hey, come check me out up here. This is how you use the trigger to talk to people long distance. Z-targeting. Z-targeting is also kind of how you straighten out the camera if the camera is a little wonky and you want to look straight ahead. And you meet Mido on your way to the Deku tree. And Mido says you need to, in order to talk to the tree, Deku, in order to talk to the great Deku tree, you need a sword and a shield, and you have nothing. So you have to go back, turns you around, and find a sword and shield. Essentially, they're just perks of exploring the area. The shield you find in the shop. You have to purchase it for 40 rupees. So to get the 40 rupees, you have to obtain that just by exploring, wandering around the opening area. If you do the little skyway, you get a 10 piece. If you break rocks and run through grass, you can get some rupees. It's really exploring the area. Behind a house, I believe there's a blue one. And then for the sword, there's a little hidden area you have to crawl to. And like a big Indiana Jones style boulder circling around an area. And as a kid, it seemed bigger than it actually is. As a kid, I thought it was more of a maze and the pressure of getting squashed by the boulder was bigger. But replaying this as an adult, I don't know if it's just because this game is almost muscle memory to me, but the boulder was not intimidating at all. And then you get the Kokiri sword just from a chest back there. So you got your sword and your shield. You equip them, talk to other people in the woods. There's a kid blocking you from going one way. That will go earlier, or that will go later. There's a lost forest or lost woods you might stumble upon. That's just confusing for now. And then we can finally go past, talk to Mido. He'll let us pass, and we can talk to the great Deku tree that we were finally summoned to. So we finally get to the great Deku tree, and lo and behold, he has a favor for us. He says he's been cursed, and we have to break the curse from him. So how are we going to do that? Well, obviously by going inside and defeating the curse from within. And this is your tutorial dungeon. This is your dungeon that tells you how to solve puzzles or the basics of moving around the world for the game. With that being said, Navi has a lot to say. A lot of hey listens, even for simple stuff as, this is a door. To open the door, press the action button when it says open. And I get the need to do this since this is the first 3D title of its kind. It just doesn't age well, which is why if they did like a Final Fantasy VII style remake, they could trim some of that fat out and re-engineer how this first dungeon works. So you get introductions to dungeon mechanics, getting the item. This dungeon is the slingshot. And then we have a boss fight at the very end, Goma. And I love how Goma barricades herself behind these Deku scrubs, but then as you're going through the dungeon, they just rat on each other. They're like, oh yeah, you got to take out my brothers in the right order. If you beat me, you got to beat them. Kind of that mentality. And they say 23 to help you remember 231, which is kind of fun. Might be worth naming the episode this. And then you go into Goma's lair, and it's ominous. It's dark. You hear spider noises. And the fight doesn't begin until you actually like look and see the Goma's eye up on the ceiling. I remember as a kid, this fight scared me because I didn't know, I hadn't fought anything like it. And with the music and the effects and the setting, the cinematography, it really got hyped up. Plus, if you didn't know what you're doing, you get swarmed. She has the little eggs and the hatchlings that come after you. I believe this is like the only time in the game, other than like 1 or 2 rooms in the tree, where you come across this kind of enemy, the little spiderlings. Pretty unique. And then once you finally beat Goma, you get kind of a satisfying cutscene of just Goma not bursting into flames, but kind of rotting and going away. And then a piece of, or heart container and a portal open up. And that's where we're going to be leaving these episodes for this play along series. Right after the boss gets defeated, that's where we'll cut off the episode, and then the next episode will start with the consequences that happen after the boss is defeated, whether you need to grab the heart container, talk to a character, or walk through a portal. That little portal, that's where the next episode will begin. If you like this episode, feel free to send out questions to ZeldaFilmcast@gmail.com. And thanks for listening. And as always, may the Triforce be with you.